The Thing Residing in the Woods. Part 7. Let's get straight into that. Damien, wake up! A female voice woke me up in the middle of the night. I felt a hand on my shoulder. I opened my eyes and saw Clarissa standing next to my bed. Get dressed, she told me. You need to see something. I put on some clothes and walked into the living room. Clarissa was waiting for me and Lilith stood next to her. Follow me, Clarissa said to both of us and started walking out of the apartment. And Lilith and I followed after her. What is this about? I whispered, leaning towards Lilith. I don't know, she replied. Clarissa didn't tell me anything. I only hope we didn't upset Alan. What did we do to upset him? We didn't find out who's working against him on time, like he wanted us to. I said sarcastically, this must be something else. We'll see, Lilith replied. How's your hip? Well, that's good. We looked into each other's eyes. Still hurts a bit, but I can handle it without any problem. Great, she said. I was worried for you. Clarissa stopped in front of some door. She put a hand on a device that stood on the wall next to the door. The device scanned her hand and let out a quiet beep before opening the door. After you, Clarissa said, after turning towards us and spreading one of her arms towards the door. I entered the room first and was followed by Lilith. Clarissa, however, didn't enter. She stayed outside. The room we entered looked like some sort of command room. There were about 30 people working on computers, all sitting by their own table. On the opposite side of the room, there was a large screen, and in front of it was Alan. He was standing there, talking to one of the workers. They were looking at the clipboard the worker was holding. When they were finished, Alan looked at us. Damien, Lilith, he said in a very serious tone. I told you, Lilith whispered into my ear while standing up on her toes. Once more, I improve better. You can only dream about it, I said, winking at her. The two of us walked up to Alan in hope that we didn't do something to offend him or ruin his plans. Do you know why I called you in? Alan asked. No, Lilith replied. Clarissa just brought us here. Brent, Alan turned his head towards one of the workers. Bring me the tablet. Here, sir, a soft voice called. A guy that was about the same height as Lilith walked up to us. He had short brown hair and small spread out eyes. He gave the tablet to Alan before turning towards us. Lilith and Damien, he said. I've heard a lot about you. Lilith and I looked at each other in confusion. We almost burst out laughing, as we didn't expect someone to be our fan or even respect us more than anyone else. Right, Lilith said. Are we, popular? Or from whom have you heard about us? Oh, I forgot, he chuckled. Alex told me a lot about you. He really likes the two of you. Brent, don't bother these two, Alan said. Get back to work. Yes, sir, Brent said before smiling at us and walking back to his seat. Look at this. Alan pressed something on the tablet and a picture came up on the screen in front of us. I didn't take up the entire screen, but just the part in front of us. I took a step forward to take a better look at the picture. What are we looking at? I asked. I could see a few buildings and houses in a tropical area. There was a wide river and a large bridge over it. The bridge had support similar to that of the Golden Gate Bridge. It looked like a larger city. This picture was taken a few days ago, Alan said. He told us the location, but for safety purposes, I won't tell you where it was. What are we looking for? Lilith was about to ask when she noticed it. Oh my God, is it really that? She asked, looking at Alan. You're right, it is. What are you seeing? I asked. Look at the top of the bridge supports, Lilith told me. I immediately looked at the location and saw it, a dark figure trying to hide behind one of the pillars on the very top of the supports. 2 large red glowing dots were pointed towards the camera with which the picture was taken. C.R. Mothman, I said. It has made a nest up there, Alan replied. We want the 2 of you to capture it. And both of us immediately looked at Alan. Capture it? Lilith asked. Yes, Alan said, looking her into her eyes. If possible, before the disaster occurs. We have some ideas of using them to predict natural disasters and helping all of those who will suffer from them. When are we leaving? I asked Alan. Tomorrow, noon, he said. I get some sleep. Your attention span will have to be big to capture this thing. Well, that's all for now. You can leave. Well, I guess you weren't wrong after all, I told her. Right. The next day we set out on a hunt, and Lilith explained to me what we were instructed to do. One part of the city was on a hill and an abandoned building stood on top of it. From it, we could see the entire bridge, including the Siam Mothman's nest. We would scout it from there and find a way to capture it. We had been given rifles with sleeping darts to take it down. The gun I mentioned in my previous post, the one that I used on that young woman, it wouldn't be viable here. The power with which the dart is shot from, it isn't enough to pierce the skin of these creatures fully, meaning that those would be completely useless. Now for the Siam Mothman, 6 feet of pure darkness, and they're very shy creatures and will try to escape almost every single encounter. If they don't try it or manage to escape, they have a lot to fight with. Well, they're fast and their large claws can do a lot of damage to anyone who comes too close to them. Their large red eyes can hypnotize some people, scaring them to the point that they freeze. It is believed that they eat smaller animals like dogs and cats while waiting for disasters to happen. Also, cryptids need much more sedative to fall asleep. We need to shoot it at least 3 times before it will go down. We arrived there near 8 p.m. We checked into a hotel we'd booked and went on a small walk to check out the building. We slept in a hotel the first night, but the rest we would spend in the building. I talked to Alex last night, she told me. Yeah? He likes Brent. I could feel her looking at me. Should we invite him when we get back? We could, I replied. You thinking of a double date or something? I guess. She took a look off me. What about Jamie? She'll be alone. We don't need to be at the apartment, I said. There are restaurants around the facility, if you forgot. We passed the building a few times to get a better look at it. I thought it made us look less suspicious. We got back to the hotel around 9 p.m. and went to bed immediately, as we would wake up at 4 a.m. to get into the building without being seen. It was surrounded by a fence to keep people away from doing some shady stuff, and there was a small hole in the fence. Lilith tried to squeeze through it, but was unsuccessful. Both of us needed to climb over to the other side. Now, the ground floor of the building was overgrown with plants that grew up to my waist. We found the stairs leading to the top and started climbing them. We could hear some commotion on some of the floors and realized there were people there. While it didn't scare us, it woke up an uneasy feeling, knowing that we'll sleep in a building for at least one night. Fortunately, a part of the stairs were missing between the 7th and 8th floors. But the gap wasn't too large and we could jump over. First, we threw our backpacks, and then we jumped ourselves. I almost fell as my hand slipped on some pebbles, but Lilith grabbed it before I could fall. We got to the top floor. The room we decided to stay in had a large hole in the wall. The hole extended to a small part of the ceiling. We passed next to the broken wall and ceiling on the ground. The hole allowed us to see the Siam Mothman's nest perfectly. And as I was looking through the binoculars, I felt something on my leg. It startled me, and I jumped to the side. Looking down, I saw an orange cat. I could hear Lilith chuckle. I am very funny, I said, looking at her. It was to me. And there was a smile on her face. walked up to the cat and bent down. What are you doing here, little guy? I said while patting it on its head. I probably jumped the same gap we did, Lilith replied. Maybe. I meowed and pushed its head into my hand. It likes you, Lilith said. I saw that it had no collar, meaning that it probably didn't have an owner. What would it be doing here, if it did? It stayed with us the rest of the day. As the night fell, Lilith and I decided that we'd sleep in shifts. My shift was first, and nothing really happened during it. But then during Lilith's shift, I woke up because of something small hitting my forehead. Damien, I heard Lilith whispering. Wake up. What? It's coming here, she said. Get the rifle. I picked up the rifle that I left lying on the floor next to me. I saw the moonlight coming into the room through the hole. As my vision got better, I saw the cat standing in it. CR Mothman is coming because it saw the cat. Before it did anything, I shot at it with a dart. I had let out a weird sound that sounded like a combination of a child's whispering and soft growling. It looked at me and charged. And then it stopped and lifted its upper body, letting out another one of those sounds. It looked at Lilith and charged towards her. I picked up my rifle and ran at the creature, reloading the rifle. I jumped at the creature's back, putting my arms around its neck. When it jumped backwards and let out another sound. It tried shaking me off, but it failed. I put my rifle to its back and shot once more. However, 3 darts weren't enough. It continued jumping around. Lilith shot it into its neck, but it still didn't fall down. It jumped next to the hole and flew out. No! I heard Lilith scream before the CR Mothman and I dropped from the building. When we were at the height of the 7th floor, when it spread its wings and started flying away. The force of the CR Mothman stopping made my gun slip away from my hand. I still had some darts left and I tried stabbing it with them. However, its skin was too tough for me to pierce. CR Mothman just kept flying, never slowing down. I almost lost my hold of its neck, but then it landed on the top of the bridge's support pillar. It tried to throw me off by trying to grab me with its arms. It managed to grab me by my shoulder and threw me on the path that connected to the 2 pillars. Thankfully, it was only 3 feet lower. I fell on my back and I almost lost all the air from my lungs. I saw CR Mothman preparing to jump at me, and so I stood up and rolled forward just as it hit the metal I was lying on seconds before that. The force with which it hit the metal made it bend inwards. It looked at me into my eyes and charged, tackling me down. As it did that, I pulled out another dart and stabbed it into one of its eyes. It let out that sound again and pushed itself backwards with its wings, while it tried to pull the dart out. It was unsuccessful and decided to take into the air once more. I couldn't let it go, so before it could get away, I jumped after it and grabbed it by its leg. We almost fell, but it managed to keep its balance, and I started climbing onto its back and realized that it was headed in the direction of the abandoned building. I was starting to get slower and slower, and realizing that it was just about to fly over the building, I tried to push its head towards the hole in the wall. I was successful when it lowered its entire body. However, it flew too high up. I dropped from it because if I didn't, my head would have hit the ceiling. The CR Mothman flew into the room and I could hear it collide with the floor. As I was falling, I grabbed the edge of the floor and was left hanging from it. I tried to pull myself up, but my back was hurting so much that I could barely move. I heard footsteps inside the room, and they were coming towards the hole. Lilith, I shouted. Help me! I tried calling after her, but there was no response, and footsteps continued in the same rhythm. I tried calling once more. Lil! I started before I was cut off. A dark circular shape with light red glowing circle next to a dark red circle from which a dark liquid was leaking appeared. It fell onto my face, almost blinding me, and 6 fingers appeared from the edge as well. 6 clawed fingers that can kill me with ease. I lifted its other hand and was about to swipe at me when I heard a sound like that of a suppressed rifle firing. The creature turned itself around and I saw a dart in its back. I took a step forward and I couldn't see it anymore. However, I could hear something heavy hitting the floor.
"Damien?"
was the sound that followed it.
"Damien, where are you?"
"Here," I shouted. "Help me, Lilith." I felt and saw an arm reach for mine and it started pulling me up. Lilith pulled me just enough for me to drag myself up. When I was on the floor, I laid on my back and took in a deep breath.
"The target is unconscious,"
Lilith said into a device.
"You can come pick us up now."
She pressed a button and put the device away.
"This was one hell of a hunt, huh?"
"I've lived through better," I replied, chuckling. "Weren't you in the room the entire time?"
"I wanted to follow you, but saw you flying it in while I was going down. I got up here as quickly as I could."
"Oh yeah, that reminds me. I lost my rifle. Can you go get it? It's probably just in front of the building." Lilith returned after a few minutes with the gun and something else.
"Look who I found on my way back here,"
she said, showing me the cat.
"We should take him with us."
I wasn't about to argue with her, and so I accepted. "Okay, but I'll blame you if we get a penalty for it."
"Don't worry,"
she chuckled, looking at the cat in her arms.
"I'll gladly take all the fault,"
she said, winking at me. The Equilibrium staff took us and the creature back, and from what we heard, its transportation had gone well. It woke up about an hour after it was put in its new enclosure. Alan was waiting for us in the facility once more. He had his arms behind his back. "Welcome back," he said with a smirk. "This is about the cat," I asked him. "What cat?" he said, looking at me confused and turning his head towards Lilith, seeing the cat. "Oh, that one. Cute little fella. Anyway, Lilith, can I speak with you? I guess Damien can take the cat to the apartment."
"He doesn't trust you as much as he trusts me,"
Lilith told me after returning to the apartment. "I already guessed so. What did he tell you?"
"He told me to get you on his side."
"Am I not already?"
"I don't know. There was also this other thing,"
she said, looking away from me.
"They caught someone from the Resistance."
"Oh, is that what it's called now? Well, who did they find?"
"He didn't tell me."
And she stopped for a second.
"But they showed me. He was lying on his stomach and his blood stained the floor beneath him."
I didn't say anything for a few seconds. "What now?" I asked. "Will you still work with them?"
"Yes, I think,"
she replied.
"What he offered us is just too much to pass on it. I just hope this won't get out of hand."
Me too, I said. "I'm going to go get some sleep. I'll see you tomorrow." I thought about the situation more. It felt like something bad will happen in the near future. I remember that Alex told me there were other outages while Lilith and I were on the hunt, and they were becoming more and more frequent. Something was going on in this facility, but I didn't know whether I wanted to find out what. But on the other hand, that something might be much worse than I expected it to be. But who knows? Maybe I'm just paranoid or delusional. Well, the next creature I wanted to talk about is a Siar Ghoul. Or should I say Siar Ghouls. These little shits live in groups of up to 20. They are one of the rare cryptids that do that, and it makes them much more dangerous. On their own, they are really easy to dispose of, or you can wound and kill them with casual guns and even some smaller caliber guns. However, rather try running. They can easily overwhelm and tear you apart before you can kill half of them. I won't talk a lot about this hunt because the nests are really easy to find. They usually use caves but can dig as well. They leave the bodies of their prey just outside the entrance of their nests. If they dig a hole, the only thing we need to do is to drop something like an incendiary grenade. It functions in a different way. It kills some of the creatures and dries out the rest while collapsing the nest. And there have been reports of small humanoid creatures attacking people in one of the national parks in the Midwest, USA. There were also a group of people that wanted to go caving but decided not to when they found a carcass of a deer in front of the cave they had chose to explore. They reported it to the park rangers, and when they went to investigate, nothing was found. This contributed a lot to the missing 411 cases, as their numbers and tunnels explain why they are traveling so fast. I was dropped off in front of the park's entrance. I had my gear hidden between fake camping equipment. I told them I wanted to explore some caves, and to which they replied by warning me. There have been reports of animal carcasses in these woods lately, the first one said. Probably just a bear or a big wolf, living and hunting on its own, the other one said. Just be careful. It was a rainy fall morning. The trails were full of mud, and that made it harder to get around. When getting deeper into the forest, I started feeling like something was looking at me and following me. I think I heard a branch breaking a few times, but it was muffled by the sounds of raindrops hitting the surrounding forest. At first, it wasn't raining a lot. However, as time passed, it got more and more intense. Much darker and larger clouds appeared in the sky and were followed by the darkness. Not like nighttime darkness, but still enough to make it 10 times as hard to see. I chose to rest for a bit under a large tree. Its thick canopy disabled the rain from falling beneath it, and then I heard it rustle as I felt water falling onto my head. And looking up, I saw one of the lower branches shaking, and raindrops were falling from it. I thought it was a squirrel jumping from another tree or a bird landing on the branch that caused the branches to shake. I walked to the other side of the tree to escape the raindrops. After 5 minutes, I felt a raindrop falling onto my head. It wasn't the only one. A raindrop fell onto me here and there. The canopy couldn't stop every single one of them, but this one was bigger than any other. I went to wipe it off my head when I felt that it was much thicker and stickier than water. And I brought my hand in front of me, and it was blood. I immediately turned my head upwards, and there was one sea ghoul slowly approaching me. It used its claws to climb down the tree. It was upside down, its head turned towards the ground. And there was blood dripping from its mouth, and the area around its lips was stained with blood. I quickly stood up and it dropped at me. I managed to lift my arms and grab it by its neck and leg and throwing it away. Being only 5 feet tall and extremely thin, they are very light, and they can weigh as little as 20 pounds. I fell onto its back, and its screech was stopped as the air exited its lungs. I took out my dagger and walked up to the sea ghoul. I was about to stab it when I felt something hit my back. I knew it was another sea ghoul, and so I backed up to the tree and jumped towards it. I felt my body pushing it into the tree and felt its grip on my back and shoulders loosened. I turned around and saw it bent over the floor, trying to get up. I grabbed it by its neck and stabbed it a few times into its stomach. As this one was dying, I heard footsteps circling me. I looked around and I could see 7 more sea ghouls walking around, waiting to find a perfect moment to attack. One of them charged at me. I went to stab it, but another one jumped onto my back and tried to pull me down. I grabbed the one on my back by its arms and threw it into the one charging at me. And both of them collapsed to the floor. Another one jumped onto me and tried to bite my face, but I pulled my knife horizontally in front of me. When it bit the dagger, it managed to get me to the floor with all of its strength. I let the knife go with my left hand and put it at the creature's stomach. I shot the dart from a crossbow into it, and the creature let out a screech of pain, dying right there and then. I jumped towards one of them, and before it could react, I stabbed it into its eye, killing it instantly. One of them was standing next to the one I'd stabbed, and it chose to bite me. As a reaction, I let go of my knife, pulling the creature closer to my other arm. I put fingers on my left hand between its teeth and pulled its jaws open. I pulled my right hand out and put my fingers between its teeth on the creature's lower jaw. I started spreading its jaws as hard as I could. I see how ghouls don't have a strong bite, and so I managed to spread the jaws so much that I broke them, and the creature dropped dead. 3 of them jumped in front of me, meaning that I couldn't get my dagger back at the moment. The rest of my darts were inside the backpack, and it would take too long to load it. My only option was to run to the tree under which I rested and put out my sword. I started running back to the tree and the beast followed after me. When I was about to pick it up, one of them jumped onto my back and I fell to the floor only a few inches before the tree. I speculated where the creature's head was and I tried to hit it with my elbow. The hit connected and I felt the creature falling from my back. I quickly stood up and grabbed my sword, and one of the creatures jumped at me, but I swung at it and cut it in half. Its 2 parts fell onto the floor, and the blood from it sprayed all over me. And there were only 4 more beasts left. One trying to crawl towards me, but I quickly disposed of its body by hitting it with my sword vertically. Its head and upper torso split in half, and blood poured onto the floor beneath it. The last 3 chose to attack together. One jumped onto me from my left, and one from my right, and the last tried to attack me from the floor. I hit the one on the floor with my leg pushing it backwards. I pushed my sword through the chest of the one that jumped from my right side. It didn't take too long for it to stop moving at all. The one that jumped from the left was now behind me, and it jumped onto my back. I grabbed it by its neck and pulled it over my head, and I threw it in front of me. It fell onto its back, and as it tried to get up, I pulled my sword out of the other one's body. I grabbed the sword by the blade and swung it towards the creature. I hit its head with the handle of my sword, and its head burst into 1,000,000 pieces. When they were all dead, I was left panting. There were only 2 more things to do: burn the dead and find a cave where these critters came from. I gathered them into a pile and lit them on fire. I put one's head inside of a bag and watched the bodies burn. I then took out the map that the rangers gave me and located a cave from where the deer carcass was found. And after about half an hour, I managed to find it. The deer carcass, it was still there, ripped apart and missing bones. I searched through the cave and the only thing that I found were remains of animals, even people. However, there was no trace of CR ghouls. The job was done, and the equilibrium staff was sent to get rid of all the bodies inside the cave. Wow. Certainly another one. Wow. This series really is coming on splendidly. Of course, a huge thank you to the incredible author, TheHolyCrusader, over on Reddit No Sleep. Each passing episode seems to draw me in more and more, and I hope you're enjoying my rendition, and I can't wait to see where the story takes us next. Guys and girls as ever, you know the drill. Please do let us know what you thought down below in the comments box. Please do like and share. It really does help build the channel and our community further. And why not hashtag TeamFEAR and DMT's Cryptid Crew. If you're an aspiring writer or would just like to have a crack at things like myself, then please do get in touch with me at the brand new contact email, which is, as on screen, contactthedeadone@gmail.com. I really look forward to hearing from you. I hope everybody's having a fantastic weekend with friends or family, out and about in the good sunshine. You're trying to keep fit and focused. But above all, guys, remember, be safe, not sorry.